My name is Nurul Atikah binti Amran and I am the first presenter.
My name is Amira binti Asri and I am the second presenter.
My name is Nursyamimi binti Mahzan and I am the third presenter.
Background of study. As the number of restaurants has grown or increased, the industry has become more competitive. Small details are also critical to the restaurant survival and nothing can be overlooked. Small businesses are said to be least below small to medium-sized enterprise (SME), which for those firms employing less than 20 people. In 2019, according to Malaysian Department of Statistics, our population is divided into 3 categories based on household income, which is bottom, middle, and top income. These 3 classes have 40%, 40%, and 20% of population, and respectively given name as B40, M40, and T20. Problem statement. Not every business can be successful, especially for small restaurant business. There are lack of plans for sustaining their businesses. Therefore, there are a lot of challenges that every small restaurant business need to overcome and get through, especially those who are new in starting their own business. A lot of things should be considered in choosing the best location for a restaurant business. Any error related to business may be fixed later, but a poor location is often irreversible. Next is research objective. There are 2 research objectives in this study. First, to identify the significant sub-factors in selecting the location of a new restaurant. Second, to determine the most important factor influencing a restaurant location. Research question. There are 2 research questions in this study. First, what is the most significant sub-factors in selecting a location for a new restaurant? Second, what is the most important factors of choosing the best location for a restaurant business? Scope and limitation. Due to lack of manpower, only a group of 5 panels will be included in the study so that the findings can be more accurate and relevant for the other to adapt in other areas of Malaysia. The panel will be selected only if they are managed to fit in the criteria stated by Small and Medium Enterprise Corporation of Malaysia (SME). Next is literature review. Literature review discuss about the definition of small business and factors that affect small business restaurant. There are a few factors that are mentioned in this chapter, which location characteristic, demography, cost, physical feature, and competition. This chapter also discusses the method in selecting the best factor. For small businesses are well known and respected around the world as important contributors to economic growth, job creation, and the overall health and well-being of economics, both internationally and nationally. According to Morrison, Brain, and Ali in 2003, businesses make up a statistically important percentage of the global economy. Next, factors that can affect the criteria of restaurant locating. For characteristics, some of the characteristics that need to be taken into account are traffic density, amenities and infrastructure, closeness to market target, easiness for car access, and accessibility. Article by Shande and Shukatme in 2019, the researchers state that high visibility and building amenities cannot be ignored when choosing restaurant locations. For demography, according to Young, 2017, state that neighborhood socio-demographic characteristics and restaurant locations pattern study have been conducted that implement the demographic factor of the location is very important. For cost, in a study by Kang, 1991, they state that shared services, property tax subsidies, loans, and low rent are positively associated to the success level of the small business. In an article by Karna 2019, building and upgrading, purchasing or renting, and shipping or storage charge are all included in the cost of the physical shop. Next, physical features. From a town planning perspective, parking space and diminished area available to higher value activities such as cultural and economic activities as well as open space. Store size is also important for selection of cafe locations. According to Karnell and Gedachlovic in 1991, The competitive objective for small stores is to develop quicker than their competitors in order to gain advantage. For competition, Han 2020 stated in his article that competition environment can also be a signal, as the location is a bad or a good location. It is also stated in an article by Parsa 2005 that contribution of a good competition environment can determine success and failure of a restaurant. For method in selecting the best location, the HP model has been substantially applied, including in large-scale issues, where many criteria must be appraised and where most of the evaluation is considered subjective. Delphi method is often used hand in hand with AHP method. In a research by Ko and Chu in 2006, modified Delphi method is used to help collecting expert opinions and to obtain consensus of the expert by reviewing the relations, repeated inquiry, decisions, opinion collection, and discussion.
Next is Chapter 3, Methodology. This chapter discusses the method used in this study. The significant method used is Analytical Hierarchy Process, AHP, and Modified Delphi Method, MDM. The study utilized AHP method to determine the best factor among location characteristics, demography, cost, physical feature, and competition, while MDM is used to assist in gathering experts' opinions or lay people agree by evaluating opinion collections, discussion, and relationships to achieve a consensus opinion. For research design, this study is designed as a quantitative data and is a cross-sectional study because the data are measured at the same point of time. This research starts with identifying research problem, research objective, and research question. Next, literature related to the problems such as the factor and sub-factor that influence restaurant locating need to be reviewed. Experts who are living in Johor were chosen only if their restaurant business fulfilled the SME requirements. After that, MDM were used to collect data from the expert using Likert scale questionnaires. The frequency are counted and the mean of sub-factor that is lower than 3.5 and standard deviation that is over 1 is considered not important and eliminated. Next, AHP method were used to find the best factor and sub-factor for small restaurant locating. If the consistency ratio is greater than 0.1, the questionnaire must be altered or pairwise comparison must be repeated. The population for this study is defined as the small restaurant owners in Johor, which is the southern region of Malaysia. In this study, a decision-making group comprising 5 panels are selected. According to Dalbeck in 1975, the suggested appropriate number of panels or members in a group for Delphi or modified Delphi method will be between 5 to 9 individuals. The panels are not selected randomly, rather they are purposely chosen based on their experience and knowledge of the research issue. A few criterions must be fulfilled so that the panel can be considered as respondent for the research. According to Malaysia's Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises (SME) Corporation, restaurant business is classified as service and can be either micro, small or medium in terms of size of business. In this study, the definition for restaurant business in a small category is used. Based on SME corporate, the criterion for the panel to be selected is that the small restaurant business that they own must be registered under Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia (SSM). Sales turnover from RM300,000 to less than RM3 million, or full-time employees from 5 to less than 30. By or basis, it means that a business will only need to satisfy either one of two criteria used in the definition, whichever is lower. Full-time employees also include contract and foreign workers. For sampling method, judgmental sampling method are used. This sampling technique requires some criterion of the panel based on the judgment of researchers. Therefore, the experts who are among Malaysians living in Johor were chosen only if their restaurant business fulfills requirements in SMEs, and they were contacted through email and phone number to fill out the questionnaire. Primary data will be used in the data collection method. By using primary data, the information collected will be considered as the current information. To gain a greater cooperation from the panels, an internet questionnaires and phone interviews will be used, as this study is also considered quantitative research design. The research instrument used for this study is questionnaire that was adapted from a study by Su in 2013. AHP methods are used in this study to measure respondents' level of agreement with given statements. In this study, a pairwise comparison matrix for criteria are composed and accessed. After that, the consistency ratio was calculated and the overall priority vector was obtained. While MDM was collected in the form of Likert scale type of questions, during the data collection, the respondents have to answer whether the vectors are very unimportant to very important. That is represented from 1 to 5. The frequencies are then counted and the module shows the central tendency of the data.
Lastly, I'll be presenting on the method of analysis. In corresponding to the first objective of this study, which is to identify the significant sub-factors in selecting a location for a new restaurant, modified Delphi method, also known as MDM, is used for this study. A total of 13 sub-factors will be used to analysis using this method. So what is MDM? MDM is a conventional interactive process to reach a consensus among a group of panels. A minimum of 2 rounds of surveys is needed for this method to achieve a significant consensus. First step of doing MDM is the questionnaires will be distributed to the panels. Then the questionnaires are retrieved and assessed. These 2 steps are continuous until we reach a consensus between 51% to 80%. If the average of these sub-factors below 3.5 or the standard deviation is more than 1, the sub-factors are considered as unimportant or not important. Thus, the sub-factors will be eliminated. The second method of analysis that will be used in this study is analytical hierarchy process, also known as AHP. This process helps us to determine the most important factors in selecting location for a restaurant. Variables that are included in this study is the 5 major factors, which is the location characteristic, demographic, cost, physical features, and lastly, the competitions. Also, the sub-factors will be included in this method, but the sub-factors selected are based on the result of the first method of analysis, which is MDM. So how does AHP process work? The first step of doing AHP process is to construct a hierarchy structure. For this study, a 3 levels of hierarchy structure are built. The first level are the goals, which is to find the best factors. The second level are the 5 major factors. The third level are the sub-factors that are selected based on the result of the MDM process. Then, a pairwise comparison matrix for a factor are composed. If the demographic factor is extremely important to the cost factor, then the cost factor is extremely less important than the demography. Thus, the demography will be graded as 5 and the cost factor will be graded as 1/5. Since the sample size is 5 panels, the calculation for the pairwise comparison matrix using geometric mean is used. From this matrix, the matrices are then normalized. The normalized matrices are then helped to calculate the priority vector, also known as the eigenvector. So from this eigenvector, a consistency ratio can be calculated, also known as CR. If the CR value are less than or equal to 0.1, which is the standard, we can assume the matrices are consistent. Thus, we can continue to calculate the overall priority vector, which then help us to decision making in ranking the best factors. Otherwise, if the CR value are more than 0.1, the questionnaire will need to be altered, then the process will be repeated from the second step.